my morning coffee with me, James O Reilly, in association with LK Formación, tailor-made solutions for your business, lkformacion.com. Very happy to have you here with me on Wednesday, and after having a nice break at the beginning of the week, like many of you, doing the puente. Interestingly enough, this puente idea we don't have a term for this in English. So when you take a day off after the weekend, let's say Monday, it's called a long weekend. So this idea of joining perhaps Sunday to Tuesday, taking Monday off, we don't really have this in English. And it's kind of strange because the bridge idea makes a lot of sense. However, when you say, I did a bridge or I'm going to do a bridge, doesn't really make sense in English unless you explain it. So I didn't do it. Many of you did, or many of you didn't. I don't know. But the kids certainly did. They were off school and I had to occupy ourselves with them. I hope you've all recovered. So what are we going to look at today? Well, we're going to look at the news. We're going to wrap up the news, see what happened at the end of the day yesterday. We're going to look at what happened while we were sleeping. We're going to look at some fruit idioms. We're going to look at the future of Twitter. As you can see in the background, we're going to be looking at the future of Twitter, and perhaps we'll look at something else. That will be enough, I think, to get us helping you with your vocabulary, your pronunciation, expressions, and so on. I'm here with you guys every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to help you with your English at 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning. Okay, it is morning coffee with me. I need it to get going. Oh, I need that in the morning. I do need the coffee. Okay, so the first thing I want to look at this morning was, where did it go? Yes, the end of the day yesterday, and what we can and what happened essentially. I'll just double check, because if I don't, I have something on the screen and then I'm too big. So what I'm going to do is, that's perfect now. I can jump over to that and I can make this bigger. Okay, right. So what happened at the end of the day? We have coal-reliant Poland builds its first nuclear plants. Poland has signed a deal with the United States and South Korea to build its first nuclear power plants. The multi-billion euro investments should help the country wean itself off coal, which still accounts for 70% of its power supply. We have a good expression here. Yes, I'm not able to highlight. That's when I put the different color. We see wean itself. When you wean yourself off, to wean off, it's a phrasal verb, and that essentially means is to cut back, and to eventually stop using something. It comes from children, and children being fed milk either from the breast or from the bottle. And when you start to reduce this, you are weaning. You're weaning the child off milk. So the country Poland is heavily reliant on coal, and it's trying to wean itself off coal. As it says here, 70% of its power supply. So that's not very good for the environment, obviously. Nuclear energy is to generate a third of Poland's electricity by 2040. The first reactor should start operating in 2033. Okay, that's what's happening in Poland. Still terrible to think that countries are using coal. I remember when I was younger, everybody in Dublin, where I am from, and also in the UK, let's say in the 80s, 90s, were using coal to burn in their houses, because every house has a fireplace where we, before radiators, before central heating, and we would burn coal. And I do remember coal even becoming illegal eventually. Moving on to the next one. Okay, automotive. What's happening here? Stellantis. Another good expression here. Stellantis, to ramp up production. Great business expression, to ramp up, to increase. To ramp up production of hydrogen-powered vehicles. Stellantis, which owns Peugeot and Opel. Interesting pronunciation here, because we say Peugeot, and be interesting in Spanish. So you might say Peugeot or something like this. And Opel. Opel, interestingly enough, I'll tell you about Opel. Is it Opel? Yes. Opel in the UK is known as Vauxhall. So it's not known by the name Opel. It's known by the name Vauxhall. Well, it was anyway a few years ago. Peugeot and Opel will start mass producing hydrogen-powered commercial vehicles. That means working vehicles. Its site in Ordin, France, will make 3 types of engines: internal combustion, electric, and hydrogen. A world first. The move comes as the EU banned the sale of new petrol and diesel cars from 2035. So from means from that date. Interesting topic. I'm a bit confused at the moment because I have a feeling that electric vehicles are being pushed onto us as a cleaner source of energy and just cleaner and so on. But I'm not entirely convinced that it is sustainable, because in order to get electricity, we need to burn things with gas. So your points of view are very welcome. I'd like to hear them. I don't see why we're not driving solar-powered cars in certain places. Let's move on. Now we're going to focus on this. Working life. Are employers rolling back pandemic-era benefits? Another expression here, great for business. This is from LinkedIn News Europe. Rolling back. To roll back is a great expression, and it means to go back on, to reduce, to stop. Over 2,900 C-level executives around the world have said that global uncertainty and pressure around rising costs could mean a rollback on pandemic-era benefits like flexibility and employee well-being. So, rollback on benefits, flexibility, and employee well-being. A rollback means to go back, we gave you these benefits, and now we're going to take them away. We're reversing. And when you're in a car, you reverse, you go backwards. So a rollback. The new report released by LinkedIn could signal a shift in the balance of power returning to employers. So employees now know, I'm going to work from home. And a lot of employees have more power to go to other places, to interview maybe. But the employers are trying to shift, to move the balance of power to them. How do you feel about that? Things going from bad to worse, as usual. Okay. Idea of the day. Okay, let's have a look. Entrepreneurship is tough. Entrepreneur is an empresario. As far as I can remember, it's somebody who begins their own business. And the expression we used the other day is from the ground up, or from scratch, from the beginning. Entrepreneurship is tough. Pronunciation, tough. Like an F at the end, tough. It's time to be honest about it. Founding your own business is a dream for many, but the realities of entrepreneurship include long hours and risk of failure. They should be clearer, okay? Entrepreneurship is not TechCrunch features and sifted articles. We have a duty of care to spread what it's actually like to people. But if you are desperate to solve a problem, do it. Okay, a lot of people, of course, and we see in the background picture, maybe this couple want to start their own music business. But is it difficult to begin your own business, to start your own business? And it said here, yes, of course. And right now in the news is the topic of the furniture company Made.com, which is a furniture company aimed at selling furniture to millennials, young professionals, kind of the new. It was when it launched, Made.com was kind of, this is the new this is the new IKEA, and it was set up by a few people, and among those people were the founders of lastminute.com for flights, and quite a successful business. But Made.com now has failed. It is going into administration, which means it's failing, it's going bankrupt. They need people to try and sell it. And again, you have a new company made by people who are successful already, but it's still very difficult. In a very short number of years, Made went from successful to a failure. So entrepreneurship, you are your own boss, but you have to accept all the difficulty, like long hours and that kind of thing that goes with it. So entrepreneurship is the word. Next, today's debate. Is it okay to ask about childcare arrangements in an interview? This is by Zoe McCaskill. She's a job search coach. There is an element of project management required to ensure children are cared for and occupied at points while parents carry out working. Carry out is to do. This is a given, and I was surprised to hear twice this week in interviews both a mother and father were asked about childcare arrangements. Should they be the successful candidate? Is that relevant? Is it right to ask? What do you think? Here in this country, in Spain, you might complain, you might not think it's great, but it seems you seem to be more protected when you have children. You are entitled to shorter working hours. You have guarderías, kindergartens, from a very, very, very young age at a reasonable price. Or I'm sure you can even find public ones if it's necessary, depending on what you want. But in the UK and in other countries, childcare is not so simple. And when they talk about childcare arrangements, it's, as far as I know, I have family in the UK, but childcare is so expensive. It is so expensive in the UK. I need to get the numbers, but also it's more